Welcome to a little breakdown session of my latest Spec project, a running commercial for the brand Onitsuka Tiger.
Bro, you're late. Get in the booth already.
So if you haven't already seen the project, that was a 30-second spot that we put out for Bandit's website as well as our Instagram release. I also put out a director's cut that was a little bit longer here on my YouTube channel, so if you haven't seen that, make sure to go check that out as well. Also, my man Karsten, who DP'd this project, just released a super in-depth cinematography breakdown, so make sure to give that a watch as well. Karsten's killing it on YouTube, and he was a huge part of making this project happen. He's been on my channel a bunch of times, so like I said before, if you're watching any of my stuff and you don't already know who Karsten is, go give him a sub. It is well worth it. With all that being said, let's jump right into the breakdown. Okay, so first things first, let's take a look into a bit of the pre-pro for this thing. Like I do for all of my projects when I'm starting creative, I always go into Milanote and I just throw in a bunch of references. I have notes, I have reference images, I have some music, and if somebody brand new were to get the link to this and check out the homepage for the project, they could understand in a few seconds what this thing's all about. So the first thing I want to show you guys is the inspo for this entire project. So this is an Adidas ad that popped up on my Instagram a couple months ago. I really liked the running stuff, the mixed media, and it kind of gave me the inspiration for this spot. It's super short. So yeah, the mixed media thing was really what we wanted to hit on. There was film, high 8, digital, and all that coming together made this really cool vibe, this gritty, authentic feeling piece that I really wanted to try and capture in ours. So after that, I gathered a few more reference videos, a lot of stuff from Adidas. I made a mood board with a bunch of stills, and then it was time to get a little more specific, and I jumped right into making a storyboard. So as you can see, just scrolling through the storyboard a little bit, a lot of those reference images I used from the mood board, all shots that I really liked and kind of wanted to try and emulate into my own storyboard. So very rough. This was kind of like the first conceptualization of the piece itself. I also wanted to note that in the mood board, we have this other board that Karsten made called the Onitsuka Tiger Look Bible, which was so helpful. When we kind of came up with the concept, Karsten laid out a bunch more reference images to further lock in our color palette because we had this very warm first scene. The city was going to be much cooler, and then again a darker, more moody studio scene at the end. So having this look bible like super locked in beforehand was insanely helpful for communicating with the rest of our crew. We had so many different teams for each day, so there was some overlap, but being able to communicate what the look was and what we were going for each individual day was so much more helpful than just going in blind. I also have some wardrobe in here. Just give you a glimpse. This is a bunch of the pieces that we looked at, trying to lay out outfits and figure out exactly what Malcolm was going to wear. I was just surfing through Depop trying to find some vintage Onitsuka Tiger, some vintage Asics stuff, anything that really fit this like retro 90s tracksuit kind of vibe. I also worked a lot with Malcolm to figure out his outfit. Like I said, he's a fashion designer. So he brought his tank top. He actually picked out the joggers that were this like silver grayish track pants, and it matched really well with the green jacket that we found on Depop. Depop was awesome. It's kind of hit or miss sometimes, but it's a great place to find some wardrobe for cheap if you're in a pinch. It's like an online thrift store. Okay, so the thing I really wanted to look at in Milanote here is the shot by shot. So this is the entire project. This is how I saw the video playing out in my brain from start to finish. Previously, I've said how I really enjoy having flexibility in my edit, and I think I've kind of used that as a crutch in the past. I think it's easy to say, oh, I have flexibility in the edit, and that is almost an excuse for doing less planning and pre-production. So Karsten and Colin both loved this concept, and as we were doing more of the pre-pro, I was having a little bit of a hard time explaining exactly what I wanted, and Karsten was like, hey man, let's just make things easy and just show me exactly how the video is going to plan out. Do the shot by shot. And at first I was a little bit hesitant, but for his sake, I was like, all right, let me try it out. And it ended up being the most helpful thing for everyone. So for myself as a director, for Colin as a producer, for shot logistics, for planning, for Karsten communicating with the rest of the team, and even for me in the edit, like knowing exactly what shot was coming next, exactly what we wanted. Here's a little bit more of the piece, and as you can see, it's pretty similar to exactly what we wanted. I had, some funny, stupid reference photos that we had on our location scouts, these 3 quick cutting scenes, all the way down to the textures. Pretty much everything was mapped out for the most part. And again, that made it so helpful. Have the little clock drawing in here, Milanote's super helpful with that. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. I even had like the seconds of the song. So when the beginning synth was playing, you can kind of hear it. So when that synth is playing for the first 5 to 8 seconds, I want these textures to be happening. And then as soon as it drops, we see Malcolm running. Yeah, so shot by shot was so helpful. So now that that is out of the way, let's jump right into the edit. This is the final picture locked version. I've said in other videos that I love making sequences for every one of my cuts. So as you can see, there's a ton of sequences up here. Everything from rough cuts to fine cuts to picture locks to mixes. Having different sequences for different versions of your cuts allows you to have a history of everything that you've worked on. So if you need to go back to a version, it's easy to just copy and paste from one timeline, put it into a new timeline. But yeah, the first thing that I like to do when I start an edit on a new project is to take all my footage and dump it into a clean timeline so that I can go through, pull selects, and kind of cut out different pieces that I know are going to be important for the story. So that's exactly what I did. There was a lot of cameras on this project. I think in New York City alone, we had 6 cameras that day. I don't think I explained this in the BTS, which I don't know how I missed that, but there was 6 cameras. We had Karsten's FX3, that was our main handheld rig. We also had Nick Brady's FX3 that was hooked up to a gimbal for all of our running, tracking, skateboard shots. We had Kyle Apodaca's FX3. He was doing textures. James also had an FX30 that he was using for textures. And then they were also carrying around this like handy cam, like high 8 digital thing. And then lastly, I had a Super 8 camera that I was shooting with a bunch. It was super helpful to just take those cameras and put them into separate timelines. So as you can see, we have day 1. This is everything from day 1. Day 2, this is the digi string. So this is all the handy cam stuff. Day 2, this was our actual string from the handheld and gimbal. And as you can see, I color coded. This is the handheld stuff. It's kind of like lighter blue. And then all the stuff on the gimbal is this darker blue. This stuff is the crossing the street shots that James shot for us up on the bridge. The next one, this is all the Super 8 footage, again, in one timeline. And then lastly, for day 2 at least, this is the texture shots from both Kyle and James. So again, I just went through, watched like every take, and if I liked a clip, I would throw it on the second track, and if I really liked a clip, I would throw it on the third track, and then you can just copy and paste the stuff that you want and then put it into a new timeline, and then you have your selects. So that was super easy for my editing process. It's kind of the same for every project. I talked about it in my last editing breakdown, but I always kind of do the same thing starting out, just to get familiar with my footage and start watching stuff. So yeah, and this was the day 3 stuff. I don't think I color coded this one just because I got a little bit lazy, but you get the idea. So yeah, a lot of moving pieces. I think for my sake, it helped to stay organized this way. Just having folders separated out for different days, different cameras, to have everything in different places organized and labeled. And yeah, the edit itself changed a ton. Even though I had the meticulous shot by shot and I knew exactly how the video was going to play out, we just had so much footage. There were so many cameras and there were so many good options. So, the flow was pretty much the same through every version, but just the shots were changing and each shot was so different that it completely changed the project. So we went through so many versions, so many rough cuts, so many fine cuts to finally get our picture lock. And we actually ended up with 2 versions of this project. We came up with a 30-second cut that was much more for Bandit and for our Instagram release. Colin really wanted a tight 30-second cut that would be used for Bandit's website. And I totally understand from a production company standpoint, you want to show that you can make a 30-second cut like a real commercial. From my point of view, as a director, I want to tell the best story that I can. So that's why I ended up with a little bit longer of a cut, and both turned out pretty similar, but it was cool to have both of those. Also, a fun note, we shot everything 16 by 9, but framed for 5 by 3. So it's kind of a happy medium between 4 by 3 and 16 by 9. It's not as boxy as 4 by 3, but it's also not as stretched as 16 by 9. So it makes you feel a little bit more connected to the main character, a little bit more confined to the story itself, but it's not as jarring as that 4 by 3. So that was super fun to play around with as well. So while we're here, I wanted to take you through a couple of sequences that I had a lot of fun editing. The first one being this whip pan to the phone. So obviously this is not a real whip. This is 2 different shots that we have here. The first one being a push in on Malcolm, and I see here's the ding of the phone. We whip to the phone, and that is a completely different shot. So I think the hardest part for me and for this sequence was getting the motion exactly right. So as you can see, the direction of the whip in this first shot had to match exactly with the whip direction in the second shot. And it was honestly a lot harder than you think to get them to line up. So the main thing for me was the motion, but I think this take turned out that I didn't press play on the screen quick enough. The timing was a bit off on the text. What we did for the phone itself was, this was just a screen recording of my lock screen. I changed Karsten's contact a couple days before to producer with a devil emoji, fire emoji, and I had him text me while I screen recorded my iPhone screen. That was kind of just what we used. I would press play on the screen recording before we rolled, and then he would do the whip, and then we would have it pop up. So that's what we did for that. But like I said, the motion on this take was perfect, but the timing of the text was not. So what I ended up doing, once the whip stops, we have a still frame, and super easy to just make a cut because the frame is not moving. You can't tell that we've just jumped in time. So right here, the clip itself, I can actually show you, doesn't pop up. Yeah, so as you can see, the timing is way off, and it just didn't work, but the motion was perfect. So I prioritized that and was able to kind of cheat a little bit here. Ended up working out perfectly. So yeah. And then you go into the rest. As far as the city stuff, like I said, we did a bunch of Super 8. That was all this stuff. When we got it scanned, it was like scanned a little bit funny. So these crops were kind of off. Normally you have that like 4x3 crop with the, full black matte. That was a little bit weird. And we wanted to really see a dramatic change from the normal digital FX3 shots to the Super 8. So we ended up putting like a film matte on there. It is real Super 8 footage, but I guess the matte on there is fake. So there's a little tidbit of info. I did a lot of like digital zooms in the Super 8. This was all just like crash zooms with the lens. But like this shot is like just a digital zoom. This shot is actually reversed, smoothed out, and zoomed in with a bunch of motion blur. I did a ton of, like this was digital zoom. They're all so quick, but all this high energy motion stuff just added to the energy. And I think when you're editing a piece like this, the energy and the motion is what matters the most. So matching the motion was important. So as we're coming in on this street, you're moving forward. And then as you're zooming in on this lantern, also moving forward, to moving up these trees, up the building, and then pushing in on the shoes. All this momentum carries through, and I think building momentum in a piece is super important when you're going through an edit, especially like this. This was super fun. It was punchy. Also catering to the story. In this director's cut, I really wanted to build out the world of Chinatown. So you have this Super 8. You're seeing the landscape, you're seeing and hearing the clock, and, kind of this race against time type vibe, leading up to the actual shoes and him running. So yeah, this drag shutter shot was fun. This is something that I look for. It doesn't have to be drag shutter, but anytime something passes over the camera, I like to look for other shots that something also passes over the camera to reveal something. So, this is where the cut happens. It's, a car and a truck that are relatively similar looking, and it kind of just creates this white transition feel, which there's other ways to do it. There's like super meticulous frame rotoscoping that you can do, but I think this looks just as good. I actually reversed this clip because the birds are actually flying backwards, which is fun. But yeah, this little pigeon sequence again to kind of build out the world. I had fun with, and I also just thought it was cool because I got some Super 8 footage of pigeons that I really liked. So it matched in with the stuff from the FX3. And then, more running stuff. This is just a truck that, again, matches with a forklift that was in front of this shot of Malcolm running. Again, a small digital zoom here coming in on him. Then we have our product shot. This was a pretty important shot to nail. We actually ended up coming back to do this a second time when the lighting was a lot better. Again, the sound design really helps to make it feel like this big moment as it slows down. We shot it at 120 frames per second, and then he speeds on by. The next shot, also going back to the motion, really aligns with like the momentum of this sequence. So it's like he's running right to left, running right to left, stepping, and then we have the sign whipping in from right to left. So those three shots really just make you feel that momentum carrying through. It would be weird if there was a shot of him going from left to right and another shot going right to left. In certain cases it works, but for this, we really wanted to carry the momentum. So anytime he's changing direction, we needed some sort of texture shot to put in between. Again, coming through the camera. This was just a fun little shot of an old guy hanging out in the park. And we wanted to make it feel like he kind of whizzed by, and he's like watching him run by. But that was fun. And then again, as he's looking left to right, we need Malcolm to be coming from left to right as he's crossing the street. So also another editing note, I always try and match footsteps to, again, like subconsciously, it just feels like more of a fluid motion if you do it this way. So as you can see, his left foot is about to hit the ground right here. So in the next shot, I wanted his left foot to be hitting the ground. It's super small thing, but like subconsciously matching that motion just, again, helps with your momentum and makes it feel super natural as he's running through the city. It feels like even though these are in completely different places and even though he's in the street and then on the sidewalk, it kind of feels like a continuous movement, if that makes sense. And then this final sequence leading up to the studio, I wanted to be tight in on his shoes, and then I wanted to kind of slow down. So we punch back out, we see his full body, he's running in slow motion before going super wide and seeing him run into the studio real time. The music fades out, we hear some diegetic sounds of the city, and now he's in the studio. So that was the city sequence. As far as the studio stuff goes, nothing crazy. This was pretty shot for shot in the shot by shot. So once we kind of had the flow figured out in the running sequence, we were able to kind of slow things down here. The goal for the clock is I actually shot this in my room. This was me. I went and bought a clock at Target, and it's not on a wall. It's literally on a table, and I just shot top down and shined a light, and it looks like it's kind of on a wall. I used a little diopter to kind of get that tick But yeah, the idea was that, when he got the text, it was 3:15, and it's still 3:15 only seconds later. And it's like he made it, even though he's still late, the Onitsuka shoes got him there, in seconds. So, and then we did a bunch more diopter stuff just for these like quick cutting to kind of match the beginning. Again, building momentum is kind of like the thing. So moving forward, turning up the volume, and then we see the dial go up until we press record. And then this last shot is just a kind of pedestal up. Carson talked a little bit about the cinematography of this shot in his breakdown, so definitely go check that out. But our final frame, as he's kind of just like vibing out, doing his thing. Again, the song choice that we used was Malcolm's song, Japan. It was like perfect. He sent me all the stems, he sent me the instrumental, and that was super helpful. I can show you in the this picture lock version. I have the stems actually here. Let me show you. So, for this section, Kick It in Japan is like the chorus, and it comes in a little bit later. There's other lyrics, but we wanted really to just focus on the Kick It in Japan part. So for the stems, what we ended up doing, I can open it in timeline. I used the synth, and then you hear the synth start, and then the 808 comes in, and then everything else. And then I sync that with the actual song. Yeah. Kicking it. Yeah. So you get the idea. Yeah. I'm super proud of this project, and I'm so happy the way it turned out. Both versions, the 30-second, the 50-second. But yeah, again, I'm so thankful for everybody that had a hand in this project. Yeah, I'm excited for what's to come. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.